Alright guys, HyDra back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. One of the biggest questions going into the new season is how good or bad might the Seattle Surge potentially be, especially with all the discussions around the OpTic curse. Could they potentially continue that going into the new season? The other day there were rumours that Seattle were getting fried in practice despite being particularly good in Search and Destroy. Coach Karma though of OpTic says it might be the other way around. Seattle looking pretty good so far in the present meta. Is this because OpTic right now aren't so good in practice, or are Seattle legitimately decent? And also Shotzzy giving his point of view on iLLeY and why he was released from OpTic not all that long ago. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, I thought this was funny. The start of the second video, we usually talk about a bit of Twitter beef, to be fair. And here's TJ with an interesting picture, and Scrappy's like, look, get your impressions in. And, well, I'm going to fry you this season. But to be fair, TJ is right now on that Houston Spartans team, not in the Pro League at the moment. Cellium also, he's been on the grind, got the Interstellar camo. I know lots of people have done it at this point. Is it easier on this game than it was back in the day? Because I remember I grinded Black Ops 3 for the first, like I had a race with my mate who could get Dark Matter first. And it still took us, I would say, 6 weeks to get. I think I got it started like middle of December. I don't know. I got Dark Matter back in Black Ops 3. I don't know if it's easier in this game than it used to be back then, but I was grinding hard for that. Maybe Cellium's is a different gravy. I don't know. But a few days ago, there was a big discussion on the Seattle Surge. How good or bad might they potentially be? And we know that the flank guys, Zuma and others, were thinking about putting them, you know, B tier, maybe even A tier. But then Parasite said that he had had word from somebody, and we didn't know who that somebody was, but they were presumably not on a particularly good team, and the rumor was, okay, would it be Estriel from Gorillas, or, you know, the way that Aches replied and said, oh, who even is that guy teaming with, made people wonder where they might potentially be. But whoever it is, the theory was that Seattle weren't that good, and therefore they got down into the C tier. Again, this, a lot of the times, is power rankings based on what we have seen so far in Respawn, really, and also is kind of based on last season a little bit as well, the way they put this together. I think it's pretty good. But teams like Boston, I think they'll be better in Search than they are in Respawn. I think the same for the Seattle Surge. So a team, really, if you're Seattle, if you can win 50% of your hard points against some of the top teams, I think they're in a pretty good spot to win a lot of Game 5s. Their team is set up to be a good Search and Destroy squad, and I think that's where they will win a lot of their series against the, you know, the upset series they win will, I think, be done in a similar manner to that. But still, C tier for a team like Surge. I mean, look, they're down here in 10th place in the flank power rankings. That wouldn't be good enough to make it to the World Championship. So are they just terrible, or is their team actually pretty good? And this has been a big matter of debate over the last couple of days. Some people seem to believe that Surge are actually significantly better than people might have expected, and others might say the other way around. To be honest, if there's any meta that they could have possibly asked for to work for this team, this is pretty much the meta, because right now, Hook can maybe use the Rival, and then Arcetes, aBeZy, and iLLeY can all use the MCW, which is pretty much perfect. If you're forcing aBeZy onto the sub, the second sub, that might be necessary at some point. I wouldn't be surprised, hopefully, to be honest, at some point this year, we're not running 6 ARs at least on every single map. But while we are, this should favour Surge. Like, there shouldn't really be any better time for Seattle Surge than right now with the way the meta presently is, with the way they set their team up. Maybe they just knew it was going to be an AR-dominated game. Maybe that was a Rambo masterclass, that he looked at these maps and he thought, all right, well, here's Terminal, here's, you know, let's say Karachi or whatever, here's Invasion. These are going to be AR-dominated. Let's, you know, stack AR players onto our team. And maybe that's worked out so far. Now, we saw quite a lot of Shotzzy clips, and we'll see another one here in a couple of minutes. But I didn't see this clip from Scrap, actually. But I trust that this is more than likely true, because we did see the other clip about Ghosty that we discussed yesterday. But apparently Scrappy said that Surge, actually, when they played them, is one of the better teams. So Scrappy, of course, he's not afraid to tell someone's trash if he thinks they're trash. So for him to potentially say that Surge are actually pretty good is for Scrappy, that's pretty high praise, to be honest. And maybe Surge are one of the better teams as it presently stands. So lots of scrims. As I say, we don't fully know how teams are doing in all game modes. We see a lot of hardpoint scrims, but for Control, for example, like this is OpTic playing Control against, I think, Vegas, actually, because you can see Purge right here. So I think they're playing Vegas here on a high-rise Control. So we don't really know how teams are getting on in Control. We don't know how teams are getting on, especially in Search and Destroy. But in hardpoint, we do have a decent idea. We haven't seen that much of Surge. But Karma says, Coach Karma of OpTic Texas says on stream here with Scump that actually Seattle are looking pretty good, which aligns with what Scrappy says, but goes against what was, the comment that was rumored to be made on the flank just the other day. Pretty interesting. Now, Karma, to be honest, was one of the players, well, former players, I guess at this point, before the season that said he actually thinks that Seattle could be pretty good and surprise people this year. He thinks there's more upside there than many people do. So maybe there's, a little bit of that in what Karma says. And he does kind of joke around that they 7-0'd them, but he basically then says that they didn't. So I'll share that clip, but I'll also share what Shotzzy says on iLLeY, who, of course, is a Seattle Surge player and looking to get a bit of revenge maybe on OpTic this season.
Never confirmed or denied this, but it seemed like he was still going through the thumb injury based on his gameplay. I mean, that's like, yeah, that's kind of that. What was I gonna say? Don't worry about it. I wasn't gonna say, I don't think I was gonna say some insane shit, but.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we like 7-0'd them.
Yeah, in Surge they've been looking crazy, bro. Wait, you guys from Seattle?
Yeah, we didn't 7-0, but I'm pretty sure we did pretty well versus.
You saying that shit?
No, but dude, they were solid. I mean, they're all playing really well.
Nah, don't give me the PR answer now. You just said you 7-0'd their shit. Absolutely.
No, I said I'm trolling. We definitely didn't 7-0 them.
So before we discuss Seattle as a team, we've got to address those comments there on iLLeY because, Shotzzy's feeding us good over the last couple of days. I'm not going to lie, he keeps coming out with clips like this because it's quite the thing for him to say, really. Of course, we know that iLLeY was on OpTic even at the start of last season, certainly during the 2022 season when OpTic won the event with this exact team at Texas right at the start of the Vanguard year with Scump, of course. Then they decided to run it back with this roster going into the next season. That didn't go so well. It lasted roughly a few weeks, basically. Then Scump called it a day. iLLeY was eventually dropped after Major 2 in Boston. I think they came 4th right at Major 2 Boston. Then iLLeY was gone. Then they brought in Ghosty. Of course, eventually it was Hook that came in Scump's place effectively. And that was pretty much how the season went for the end of the year. But we never really got a good explanation as to why iLLeY was dropped. I think people just thought they could upgrade in that role. But there was some rumours about the thumb injury. We know that during the Vanguard season, that's when iLLeY developed this issue with his thumb, and he had to step out for quite some time. There was lots of drama about it because iLLeY was every so often spotted in, 8s or scrims or search and destroy tournaments on a burner account, and people were like, is he allowed to do that? Have the doctor given him clearance or whatever? And then the theory was, okay, iLLeY's thumb's now fixed again, it's fine, and he's ready to go. And that's been what we've understood for some time, and I'm sure that now that is definitely the case. And maybe even last year that was the case as well. But Shotzzy says that he still thought that iLLeY had the thumb injury because of the way he was playing. So basically he was saying that, iLLeY was getting cooked and, wasn't playing that well. So the only explanation was that he still had this thumb injury, which, I don't know, do you guys think that's true or not? Because if it was still an issue at the start of last season, kind of like 1 year on from when it happens, is it still an issue in the background now? I don't know. I guess we'll see. If iLLeY drops less than a 0.9, he's still got a thumb injury, according to Shotzzy, apparently. That seemed to be at least the implication of what Shotzzy was saying, right? That, according to his gameplay, that he was getting fried, that, he must just have an injury. Or maybe he just wasn't as good as that game. I don't know. Hopefully iLLeY's fine, but at the end of the day, iLLeY, when he was initially dropped in the off-season of 2022, before they then re-signed him about 2 days later, right? If you guys remember the saga on that, iLLeY replied to the tweet saying, see you next year, something like that. Maybe I'll just find it real quick. Yeah, here we go. So they tweeted, goodbye iLLeY, before then welcoming him back 2 days later. And he said, see you all next year. So his intention was definitely to try and exact his revenge on the team. Now, of course, he eventually returned to the team and then had to spend a while on the sidelines last season when he was benched from the roster. But this year, he's back in business, and I'm sure that he also wants to get one over on OpTic again. And that's why this whole storyline between OpTic and Surge is pretty good, and hopefully Surge are competitive enough to make it relevant. So what do you guys think about this? Is Karma just giving props to guys that, because of course Hook is there, iLLeY is there, former OpTic players in the most recent season that Karma worked with. Now let's be honest, Karma was quite critical of Hook when he was on his team, and Karma didn't really work that much with iLLeY, to be fair. But Karma did say before the season that he thinks the Surge team has more upside than has been, maybe they've been getting credit for, shall we say, and maybe they're legit at the moment. to be honest, they kind of better be legit at the moment, because if they're not legit right now, then I think as the season progresses, they might struggle, as usually more SMGs start to come into the meta. But, you know, that's a matter for debate right now. And the way this team is presently set up, yeah, sure, they should be good in search and destroy. And if they're being competitive against teams like OpTic, teams like Toronto in the respawn modes, if they're splitting maps with these teams, they could be a force at the start of the season. I've said it before, the first event, kind of anything can happen often at the start of the year. Like, teams that are right now looking really good, there's a possibility that even a team like Thieves, or even a team like Surge, or maybe even Carolina, to be honest, they can make a deep run. And I think last year, again, the first event, that was Vegas Legion's chance to get a top 4. They weren't far away, but again, Vegas Legion last year was slightly ahead of the curve at the start of last season, and they utilized that well in the first event. They didn't get top 4. I think they might come, yeah, I think they just fell short of top 4 last season, but there's usually a bit of a surprise package at the start of the year, and Surge did make the grand finals of the first event last season, but of course with a dramatically different team. Speaking of another couple of teams that have been maybe under-repped, or whatever you guys want to say, Minnesota Rocker, of course. Vivid is still leading the ladder quite emphatically here on the BPL leaderboard, but it's got to be said, Drazah has been putting in a shift here to try and catch up. He's now played 46 times here, with 26 wins, 20 losses, but he's back on a 4-win streak, which starts to give you win bonuses, basically. So he's back up into second place above Awakening. Vivid, though, is still kind of dominating it, and yeah, games played, Creme, Awakening, Fellow, etc, etc. But if you order it like this, then you'll see that, yeah, Vivid is still #1 player to beat right now. Snoopy at the bottom here is 2-8, Gwyn, Cammy, etc. Shotzzy's actually at 4-10, but still there's a good few days until this is officially resolved and the champion is going to be crowned. Just before we close out, thought this is pretty cool from Brian Stats here. People know about this, the 47 tournament stretch from Scump, but it's still kind of insane to think about. I don't know if anything like this will really get breached. I think Cellium is on a decent run, as is HyDra. Both of those guys are on, like, you know, 10 plus, maybe Cellium's at way more than that actually, tournaments in a row with a positive KD. But Scump's record, especially on an SMG, is pretty absurd. Positive KD in 47 tournaments in a row, 19 championships in that period, 26 finals he made, of course winning in 2017, averagely placed below 4th, which is kind of insane given, you know, there was more teams at the events back then, and had 14 of those 47 tournaments with a 1.2 plus KD. So yeah, that's going to be a tough record to stop. Almost 50 events in a row. I think, honestly, Anaheim 2018 or whatever the one was after Anaheim that they played that year, he had like a .99. I think he was literally 1 kill away from being even. I think like he had literally 1 less kill than death. So it was like a .996 or something, but technically it was below 1. So that broke his streak. But then after that, he then went positive again for another, I don't know how many events in a row, but maybe a record that guys like Cell or guys like HyDra could try and go for. But the issue is that even to get to 47 tournaments, at the moment, the way the CDL is run, you've got to play for so many years because there aren't as many events now as there used to be back then. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
But like, what if you were like 13 and the other person was 11? Y'all start dating, and then like you turn 18 and then she's 16, but y'all start dating like way back then. Is that weird? Yes or no?